Red Room Survivor. The urban legend of the Red Room was whispered in hushed tones on the internet forums Ian frequented. It was said to be a dark web live stream where users paid to witness unspeakable horrors, things that no one could ever forget if they dared to watch. Like most people, Ian dismissed the stories as exaggerated fiction, rumors designed to scare the curious away from the deep web's shadows. But curiosity can be a wicked master. Ian had always been intrigued by the forbidden corners of the internet, and after weeks of research and prying through layers of the deep web, he stumbled upon a link that chilled him to the core. A simple, unmarked page with the words, "Do you dare to enter the Red Room?" blinking ominously in blood-red text. For a moment, Ian hovered over the screen, his heartbeat quickening. Was this just another hoax? Something about the page felt wrong, as if it was aware of his presence. Against every rational fiber in his body, he clicked the link. The screen flickered and went black. For a moment, nothing happened, and Ian felt a wave of relief. It was a prank, just another ghost site. He laughed, shaking his head at his own paranoia. But as he moved to close the window, his screen flashed, and a live feed blinked into existence. His breath caught in his throat. The room was dark, illuminated only by a dim, swinging bulb that cast sickly shadows on the bare concrete walls. In the center, there was a solitary metal chair with straps. In front of it stood a table covered in tools that looked like they belonged in a medieval dungeon. A chat box appeared beside the video stream, filled with lines of text in various languages. English was sparse, but one message caught his eye. "Welcome, new viewer. Enjoy the show?" Ian's hand shot to the mouse, trying to close the window. It wouldn't budge. The cursor moved, but clicking did nothing. Panic surged as he pressed keys on his keyboard to no avail. The screen had taken control. A figure stepped into the room on screen, clad in a black hoodie and wearing a featureless white mask. The room's atmosphere grew colder as he approached the chair. He turned to the camera, tilting his head as if inspecting the viewer on the other side of the screen. Ian's stomach churned. It felt as though the masked figure was looking directly at him. The masked man dragged someone into view, a woman gagged and bound. She struggled, her eyes wide with terror. The chat box erupted in excitement, users cheering and demanding different forms of torture. Ian's fingers trembled over the keyboard, unable to look away, yet too petrified to act. The masked figure began methodically, holding up tools for the camera, almost performing for the unseen audience. He seemed to relish the moment, feeding off the digital spectator's glee. Ian watched in horror as the nightmare unfolded, feeling helpless and complicit. Then something happened that made Ian's blood run cold. The screen flickered, and text appeared at the bottom. "You are next." Ian froze. What did it mean? Was this part of the performance? Frantically, he reached for the power button on his computer, but it was as if the machine was possessed. It wouldn't turn off. The screen suddenly split, showing another feed, his own webcam. It was on. His face, pale and terrified, stared back at him. A chill ran down Ian's spine. Someone was watching him. His door was locked, his windows shut. How could they be looking at him through his own webcam? The chat exploded, with users now typing, "He knows, and he's realized it." They were talking about him. The masked man in the Red Room turned towards the camera, raising his hand slowly to wave. The chat roared with laughter and applause as if the viewers knew something Ian didn't. His screen went black again, this time only briefly, before a new message appeared. The feed cut off. Ian could finally close the browser window, but the damage was already done. His heart raced as he yanked the power cord out of his computer, sending it into a deathly silence. He stumbled back, trying to catch his breath. Was it over? What did they mean by the hunt? That night, Ian barely slept. Every noise in his apartment made him jump. Footsteps in the hall, the creak of the building settling, the hum of the refrigerator. It was as though the shadows themselves had eyes, and they were watching him. The next day, he woke up to find a plain white envelope slipped under his door. His hands shook as he picked it up and opened it. Inside was a single photograph of him sitting at his computer from the previous night. He dropped it, heart pounding in his chest. Who took this? Who had been in his apartment? He called the police, but they were of little help. There was no sign of forced entry, and when he mentioned the dark web, they dismissed it as an elaborate prank. But this was no prank. Ian knew what he had seen. Days turned into weeks. Ian became a paranoid wreck. He avoided using his computer, taped over his webcam, and rarely left his apartment. Yet the feeling of being watched never left him. Every night he would hear the faintest clicking noise, like nails tapping against glass. It came from the window. But each time he gathered the courage to look, there was nothing there. Then the messages started. Emails, texts, even letters delivered to his door. Each one bore the same phrase, "You are next." It was as if the dark web had seeped into his reality, hunting him through every means possible. One evening, while staring blankly at his television, it turned on by itself. Static filled the screen before it cut to a live feed. His stomach dropped. It was his apartment, seen from an angle that showed both him and the window behind him. He could see himself, frozen in place, eyes wide with terror. And then, the masked man stepped into view on the feed. Ian whipped his head around to the window behind him, but there was nothing there. The room was empty. Yet on the screen, the figure approached, standing just behind him, raising a gloved hand to his shoulder. A tap on his shoulder. Ian screamed and jumped up, spinning around, but the room was still empty. His gaze shot back to the television, where the masked figure now stood in the center of the room, head tilted, mocking him. The screen went black, and words appeared. "You survived once. Can you survive again?" Ian couldn't take it anymore. He packed a bag, left his apartment, and fled to a motel on the outskirts of town. There, he tried to start over, living disconnected from his old life. For weeks, it worked. No messages, no sightings. The paranoia faded, giving way to the hope that he had escaped. One quiet evening, as he sat in the dim motel room, his phone buzzed. Hesitant, he glanced at the screen. An unknown number. With a shaky hand, he answered. A voice, distorted and mechanical, filled his ear. "The Red Room never ends, survivor. We're always watching." The line went dead. Ian dropped the phone, staring at it as if it would come alive. His laptop, lying innocently on the bedside table, suddenly powered on. The screen glowed, displaying a message. The screen switched to a live feed of his motel room, filmed from somewhere behind him. Ian turned slowly, dread crawling up his spine. There, in the corner of the room, stood a small camera, its lens blinking a tiny red light. The window shattered. Ian screamed as hands reached out of the darkness, dragging him toward the camera. He fought, kicked, and screamed, but it was like battling a shadow, an unseen force that pulled him into the abyss. The motel room was found empty the next morning. Ian was gone, his belongings scattered across the floor. Only his laptop remained on the bed, the screen displaying a single line of text. In the weeks that followed, a new link appeared on the dark web, advertising a live stream titled Red Room Survivor, The Final Hunt. Those who clicked found a black screen with a countdown, promising that the hunt was far from over and that the Red Room would always find its next prey. Ian's story became a legend, a warning passed between those who dared explore the dark web. The Red Room was not just a stream, it was a predator lurking in the shadows, waiting to pull you into a nightmare that never ends. And somewhere in the darkest corners of the web, the masked figure waits, watching, waiting for you to click the link that seals your fate. Red Room Survivor, The Final Hunt. What happens when curiosity leads you into the darkest corners of the internet? Follow the harrowing tale of Ian, who stumbles upon the Red Room, a forbidden realm on the dark web. His brush with the horrors hidden in the shadows becomes a fight for survival as he realizes the nightmare has only just begun. This chilling story will grip you until the very end. Watch if you dare, but remember, some doors should never be opened, and some links seal your fate forever.